and I'm going to do the intro again, which is going to be fun. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday, or January 18th. This is our community meeting. And as we get started today, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things as we look at our agenda. Liam, would you mind giving me screen sharing permissions? One of the points on our agenda today is simply to chat about community meetings, streams, and kind of the implications for that. So I'll go ahead and share my window really quick. So if you look at the agenda today, I put it second. I'll correct this to be the first thing that we talk about. But first of all, hello everyone on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the different streaming platforms. We have been pioneering taking this community meeting off of a Zoom, which is a little notoriously difficult to, it's a barrier to entry, and trying to live stream them so they can reach a variety of different platforms and people, especially if you just like kind of keeping this on in the background. So just a general reminder for anybody on the Zoom that this is being live streamed. All the meetings before were being recorded anyways and posted to YouTube, but this makes it really nice. We can just go ahead and right after the call ends, post the link at the bottom, in this recording section and go from there. So I just wanted to call that out really quick. It seems with a little bit of friction, we figured out the right way to get this to stream to all the places. And so really excited to bring you this meeting live every week. Now, with that being said, that was all of the fun disclaimer for the beginning of the call. As usual, we like to try and start off with some form of demo. And we have a very exciting one with a couple of topics that will probably follow this week, with a first-time contribution from one of our fellow team members at Cosmonic, Patrick. Patrick, actually, if this is the first time you've been on a call, do you want to go ahead and do an intro and then just kind of generally roll into your demo? Oh, you're muted. Fun stuff.
I said, yeah, sure. I am Patrick Gray. I'm on the infra team at Cosmonic. Been doing infrastructure, DevOps, SRE stuff for, almost a decade now. And yeah, I was super excited last week to kind of like just look at the code base for wasmCloud OTP, and kind of like I've never really written Elixir before, so please review my code with all of the eyes for nits and fixes that you can, because I don't want to accidentally introduce any bugs. But yeah, we were talking about local dev and making the local dev loop faster, and I kind of wanted to take a stab at starting actors from file. And there's been some chat on the PR about like, should we enable this by default, or should we just have it kind of like Wash can set an environment variable and start it up? But that hasn't quite kicked out yet. I mean, I'm totally happy for it to be only working for local dev. But yeah, should I just go ahead and demo it, Brooks?
Yeah, that sounds great. I figured just roll right in the demo and we can chat after.
Oh no, Zoom would like to record. Okay, 1 second. I need to allow it. There we go. I'll rejoin in 2 seconds. I'm so sorry.
While we're doing the Zoom shuffle, I figured I could go ahead and share the actual pull request. I can go ahead and drop this into the chat, actually. Anybody who's watching on our various platforms, I think we should be able to reshare that comment as well. But it's one of the more recent PRs in the wasmCloud OTP repo. Since Zoom probably asked Patrick to re-sign in and reprove that he's a real human and reprove his identity and everything, I just want to give a shout out to CJ, one of our community members who was going through some of our documentation and introductory tutorials and kind of gave a really simple readout about what he wanted in a developer experience for a project like this. It sounds really simple when you think about it, but the 1, 2, 3 step is I want to be able to change some code, run a command, and then have the new code loaded and testing against it. And that is kind of some of the inspiration for what got us talking about local development experience, what it means to start an actor from a local file. And then I have stalled long enough to give it back to Patrick.
Oh, hey, yeah, sorry about that. I'm still on a new Mac, getting all the right permissions in place. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
That one's on Liam, but only because you left and rejoined. There you go. There you go.
Okay, sweet. Let's see. So let me know if this text is large enough. Is that okay?
You may want to do like one zoom in,
okay,
but it's pretty good.
It's fine. Yeah, there we go. Actually, I totally have enough room. Let's resize that. So currently starting it from, I've got my branch running over here for the wasmCloud OTP host, and then I can grab the host ID and set it to like a bash environment variable. And then I can go and look at that host and see that it doesn't have any actors right now. And then in this pane, what I've done is I just have the hello world actor, and I changed some of the strings in here. So this, it says hi from file, and then if you don't give it a name, it just says anonymous. So let's go ahead and wash build that. Hooray. And then we do wash control start actor file, and then you give it your local path, which bash or ZSH should be setting. Give it the, what is it, hi file s. Oh, I think that should work. Yep. And then since this wasmCloud host it's started in a very similar way to that wash starts it, where it's actually just running as a process on your system. So it pretty much has access to your file system, just like your terminal or whatever. If it's running in a container, you would have to like copy it into the container or otherwise like mount in a directory. And then what we can do is let's go get our inventory again. So we will clear. Oh, that's less pretty. 10 more. There, that's a little better. And then lastly, figured out how to call it. Oh, let's get our actor ID. Actor ID equals, got to do it up there because that's where I said host ID. Cool. So that should give us actor ID, and then we do call actor ID. No, but we need a hello, don't we? What is it? Header. There it is. That should be it. Yep. So we called our actor ID with, this is the, I guess, like the call that gets sent over to it, and then it knows that this is an HTTP request. And then we get some fun characters here, but what we see here is hi from file anonymous. What we can then do, so right now, as it's implemented, if you like change the file and you say we wanted to make anonymous lowercase, do that, and then we do wash build. And the only problem right now is that because the reference to the file on the file system doesn't change, the wasmCloud host will, like, if you just keep starting more actors, it'll actually be starting different versions of the actor, and then they would be like giving you different responses. So if you have to do watch control stop actor, I think it's actor ID. Oh, it's there. That's post ID, actor ID. So we stop the actor. Let's start it. Reset our actor ID to the actor ID, and then we will do call. And then now we get hi from file, and then anonymous is lowercase. If you're on a Mac, another cool thing that you could do is like you use like iNotify, and then you can write like a really tiny like one-liner bash script to like recompile this and run this in one terminal as you're editing your code. On OS X, or sorry, on Mac OS, there's this little program called FS Watch that uses the custom Mac OS APIs, and you can do the same thing. But I think, Brooks, you're interested in possibly making Wash do that automatically in future. You said maybe you won't. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's my little demo, and that's it for me. How do I stop sharing? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so Patrick, he kind of queued me up perfectly for. I had like one or two questions for demo, and then I kind of wanted to like go on to a broader discussion. So funny, iNotify / FS Watch, like that API / little program is exactly how the wasmCloud dashboard does the hot reloading. It watches that local file on disk for any changes, and so when you run wash build, it'll see that it changed and reload it. And I would love to just build that into Wash, something like, you know, and don't take any of this as a final API. It's like Wash auto dev, you know, on a file. Like that's sweet. And so you can just have that running kind of in one terminal. And that would essentially do the same thing where you're talking about if you start multiple instances of the same actor, but they're actually different, like the implementation is different, how you can do a call and it'll be round robin between them. That can also take care of kind of the stopping and starting. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I also want to talk to folks and figure out, like, is there, for local file, since it's kind of like a one-off, like custom one, maybe there's a different way. Like maybe we could just do a SHA-SUM of the actor somewhere in there, and you know, when we restart it, it just detects that the actual, you know, under .wasm file changed or something. I don't know. But
yeah, it's like when you start an actor and it has the same public key of an actor that's already running, if the SHA-SUM is different, that means the actor is different. And, you know, we do this in a less robust way now, which is if you try to start an actor from an OCI reference and it's a different OCI reference, then, and you may have ran into this, or people may have ran into this, it says, hey, by the way, you're already running this actor and it looks like it's probably going to be different. So that sounds like a bad idea. This will handle these requests differently. So stop it first. So that's right. And Coffee Guy is exactly correct that in the JWT, we actually already have the hash embedded. We do it for to avoid tampering. We embed the hash of the module so that you can't like change it in transit. You know that what you're running is what was signed. Sweet. We got a couple of hands up. Liam, I think you were first.
Sure. Patrick, you know, this feels deceptively simple, and I appreciate the discussion around some of the nuances around like change detection, things like that. But the feature itself, we were looking at, I think, hiding behind a feature flag to say, you know, to enable this feature set or not. Would you mind sharing why we would want this behind a feature flag and why this may not be the best practice for production or for productionizing wasmCloud? I just found that discussion to be relevant and interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, Kevin gave a great set of feedback on the PR, but I think one example would just be the fact that like when you're deploying systems in the cloud and you're on hardware that can disappear, well, not hardware, virtual machines that could disappear from you. Maybe you could lose a file system here or there. Relying on local hard drives to always kind of have all the files that you sync to them in the first place isn't necessarily a great idea. I think we definitely want to push people towards, well, I think in the past we pushed people towards, there's Bindle, and then there's also the OCI preferences, which can use an OCI registry. And I think like there's an opportunity for other types of, distributed stores, but we generally don't want, I think that it's good to not just give people that like, oh, just use a local file and then like SCP everything to all the servers in your infrastructure. I don't think that's necessarily the best way to go about it. And then I think Kevin, you had some good input on like the security side and other stuff.
Yeah, I just to begin with, I kind of wanted to take umbrage to Brooks's reference that this is not, that our current setup is not as robust. Part of the reason why deploying an actor is as frictionful as it is right now is because we have intentional guardrails around everything. One of the scenarios that can ruin someone's day in the distributed system is if I have an actor on one machine, or an actor in one virtual host and another actor and that same actor in another virtual host, but the implementation differs, then when wasmCloud goes to round robin your requests between the two actors, you're going to get half of them will work the old way and half of them will work the new way. And we need to avoid that scenario. I mean, there are intentional like blue-green testing things when you would want to do that on purpose, but you don't want to be able to accidentally cause a drift in functionality within that same actor across your lattice. So we have guardrails in place so that we will detect that when you attempt to start an actor on, say, host A, if that actor that you're starting on host A is different than the same actor with the same identity running on host B, we will actually reject your attempt to start that actor on host A. And we do that so that we can try and prevent the divergence. And we actually will emit a message saying that what you really want to be doing is making a live update call, which will correctly move you from one version to the next. So from a security standpoint and from just a distributed systems standpoint, being able to load bytes from the file system is super convenient for developers in a local iteration loop, but is scary dangerous in production. And so that's kind of why we want to be able to either leave it off by default or make it easy to disable, things like that. The public API pretty much does only have live update. You get start actor and live update. And the reason why the guardrails are in place is to prevent you from calling start actor multiple times in a way that can create the divergence. But yeah, the super short version is that this feature is supposed to be making it easy for you to locally develop and iterate over your actors. And then when you're in production, you wouldn't be using this.
Thank you so much.
I just want to.
Sorry, Brooks. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I wanted to read off one of the questions we had in the Zoom chat, because I don't think that it automatically posts to all the platforms. It's just mostly asking about if this feature is mainly meant for local development. Can you set an environment variable or something to enable this that says dev or local or something? And that's actually exactly what we've been talking about in the PR. Patrick floated a wasmCloud enable local file, something, just some environment variable that will be disabled by default to take the secure choice by default. But then some of our tools that are specifically revolve around local dev, things like wash up, or what we kind of proposed earlier with the wash, auto watch, and actor, things like that. Those would enable it by default, or those would enable the environment variable so that it's just the best experience for local development. Patrick, did you want to say anything else on that one?
No, I think that's everything for me. Thanks for giving me the time to demo it.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Hey, anybody else have any other questions or comments for Patrick, or this notion of local development loop with starting from files? Hey, coffee guy, whoever you are.
I'll say my piece for what it's worth. I've actually been thinking about this feature for a very, very long time. And local development, specifically for me, and I'm being selfish, does not mean same machine. So picking things up off the file system does not close my developer loop. I would be more interested if we could look at a approach where wash was the mechanism that uploaded over the lattice to the host, because all of my development goes on a machine behind me and via wash on my Mac. So like that feature set really wouldn't help unless I start SCPing things around. So just something to think about.
Okay, interesting. I actually raised my hand a little preemptively, coffee guy, because I was thinking, maybe that you were going to bring up Docker and like, yeah, we need to have some extra things in our documentation for mounting.
I was going to say Docker too.
That it certainly is something that, and I think Patrick had already thought about it. He made a comment about it. But that's a great point, that local development doesn't always mean on your exact local file system. And love the idea of brainstorming something where we upload bytes over a lattice, and essentially you have a control interface connection to a host. That means you can start an actor over that connection. Let's see, Kevin, I feel like you've had some thoughts on this one. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add for that? I think that this notion has kind of floated around before, but there are some complications in terms of NATS message maximum sizes and dealing with uploading actors over NATS as some strange edge cases.
Yeah, one of the again, this one comes down to distributed systems edge cases. The problem is rarely ever, how do I physically get the bytes from one place to another? That's an easily solved problem. The problem is what happens to the state of your lattice once you've done that. So for example, we support the ability to tell a host to scale up the number of instances of a running actor. And if the bytes for that running actor were received via direct stream over NATS, then that host now has to maintain a special way to keep those bytes so that it can scale them. And further, if you try and tell another host to start an actor, this is where the divergence comes in, because now you can, if you're able to directly stream bytes from, say, wash to a host, then you now have the ability to easily create that divergence where you can push two actors with the same public identity that have two entirely different implementations. And so again, we would have to put guardrails around that to make sure that when you try and do that, we will try and detect a difference or a potential divergence and block you from starting the second actor. So again, super short version is, yes, it would be very handy to be able to remotely push bytes to an actor or to a host without having to use a registry. And we've been planning on doing that for a while now. The trick is, of course, just doing it in a safe and reliable way that doesn't give you easy ways to accidentally ruin your cluster.
I was just wanting to bring up, like, could we just combine the best of both worlds here to start and then work? Like, I'm trying to think of the don't let perfect be the enemy of good here, because I think to solve it for like anyone using it all the time, but is there a problem with having a having this like over NATs? It doesn't even have to store into an object store. It could go NATs to disk, and it only is supported with the development flag on. I mean, it's the same thing as like doing with a file. Like it's the same danger of doing it with a local file if you're joined to a cluster. Like we've had multiple people mentioning it with doing it like with cosmonic super constellations. But like if you like, it's the same set of difficulties. So if we're very clear with a feature flag that would give people the inner dev loop type of thing, like just that part without having to solve the rest of it at first. So it gives us 2 steps rather than having to solve the whole kit and caboodle before we actually have that functionality available.
So just, I guess one thing I had mentioned in the PR, like, even if you're working on local dev and you're opening up TCP connection and you're copying something, you're adding, like, as actors get bigger, that'll be, that's going to add more time in. And like, I feel like Rust already takes long enough to compile. But I think that, yeah, like maybe some combination slash of the features would work there. The question I actually had was, and I don't want to, Kevin, do you want to answer Taylor's question before I ask like a different question?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to add that, like you said, the ability to send bytes, send actor bytes directly to, or even send provider bytes for that matter, directly to a host, again, is one of those things that creates that potential divergence that can cause all sorts of horrible problems. So yes, I think what you would want to be able to do is explicitly enable this mode, or I guess put another way is to explicitly remove the bumpers from the side of the bowling lane that are there to keep you on the straight and narrow. So I would like to see a unified way of doing both, and also have a way to make it explicit that if you want to do these, you have to turn off some guardrails.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that still sticks out for me is, like, I don't understand, like, I'm compiling a different binary every time. Like, I can change a single character in my little hello world and compile it, and that's a different binary every time. So I guess I just still don't understand why the content or the binary itself can't indicate to the system that, like, this is a different thing. So
yeah, Jordan, I know you got your hand up, but I want to answer real quick before I forget. One of the other many implicit guardrails inside wasmCloud is the concept that an actor is immutable. And wasmCloud is designed to be pushed and run in production on quote unquote immutable infrastructure. And as a result, if you tell the wasmCloud lattice to run version 0.0.1 of your actor, the assumption is no one should ever be able to change the bytes that are associated with 0.0.1. That's why we explicitly turn off the ability to pull latest from OCI registry images. And so that's another guardrail that these features, I don't want to say violate, but if you were to allow these features to go unchecked in production, they would basically wreck the stability and predictability of your lattice.
Jordan, or Coffee Guy, do you want to go?
I actually don't remember my whole question, but I think it was around Kevin. I'm not. I guess I'm not completely understanding the difference. So the powerful mechanism here becomes the tag to an OCI reference. Then is what it sounds like, because to me, when a host pulls something down from a registry, we cache it on disk, and then that host uses that cache. If I push it over the lattice and it caches it to disk, there's still a lot of info in the JOTs that we could reference, hash and whatnot. But it seems to me that the immutable piece is the tag. Then is that because I guess without the tag, I don't see how it's any different from pulling an OCI reference to pushing a signed actor over the lattice, because they both end up in a cache directory on disk.
It doesn't really, wasmCloud doesn't really make any distinction between tagged or untagged images. All it does is try as hard as it possibly can to enforce that if one host has started an OCI reference, that when another host attempts to start the same OCI reference, it is for the same set of bytes.
Okay, got you. So the problem would be, in that instance, if another host came up and mine died, it would have no access to the bytes.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Right. And so this is why it makes sense that it's a convenience for developer iteration, but it is a liability when trying to run a highly available production environment.
Definitely.
So, oh, sorry, Jordan.
No, I'm done.
Yeah, I guess coming from like Kubernetes Docker world, you know, like human readable tags are always just that. They're human readable tags, and anytime you like configure the system with them, it will just pull different bytes. Like if you rev, that's why, like, you know, using latest tag in production is a anti-pattern when you're running you know, containers. And so I guess that's where I wonder, like, could the system itself, you know, say you have you know, your actor ID, couldn't the system itself also ID, you know, say like this is actor ID blah at hash, you know, because like if you are revving it or if you are changing it, and then that way you would still be able to maintain the fact that like you are running this actor, and even if you do end up, you know, breaking best practices, the system will still maintain that single binary. Because like right now, will the OCI reference, is it susceptible to the same issue as the file thing that I'm encountering?
Nope.
Oh, it's not. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the OCI reference, we perform the guardrails on. You can't mutate the contents of an actor for the same OCI reference. But your point is a good one, which is we could probably relax some of the requirements that we have around things like the OCI references matching and things like that, and rely more on the combination of the public ID, the public key, and the internal hash from the JSON token. And if we use the combination of those two, then we should be able to allow a little bit more flexibility in terms of letting arbitrary bytes come in. Still won't solve the problem about the availability of bytes from arbitrary hosts, but it'll at least make it so that you can still kind of shove bytes around with a little bit more confidence.
Okay, looks like we have a little bit more brainstorming to do around that. So is the decision here too to just have that and this file thing, or do we want to all go more towards the let's try to figure out how to do this over the lattice type of idea? Yes, Jordan.
Selfishly, I'm gonna start prefacing everything I say with that. Over the lattice then makes it so that it's like a something, no matter what host, and all hosts in the future can support if you support the lattice schema, right? Instead of like a feature embedded into the actual runtime. So that's why I like lattice.
It's my first contribution, and I don't assume that it will be accepted. But I do want to point out that like a read off of an SSD is going to be probably an order of magnitude faster than an SCP, and then a save, and then another read, or what have you. So I really do think, I went into it with this, like, what is the best possible experience for local dev when you have a compiled actor slash binary, and I think this is as close as you can get to that speed. So yeah.
Yeah, that was my other concern too, is just from a road mapping thing. We're starting to try to like put together what we want, what we're hoping to get done with the wasmCloud project over the next year or so. We're trying to put some ideas together, and the thing is, it's just about road mapping this. Like I'd love the lattice idea. I think it's good to consider that and do it, but I also don't want to just say, well, a couple people in community call are the kind of people who like to do remote dev, which I'm not saying that's bad. And so therefore we're just going to wait. Like we have something that can work right now, and could definitely be useful for a local developer who's just trying this out. And so I think that, and yeah, that's one of those things that there's the KV start. There's a bunch of ideas there, Jordan, but even that, like, instead of going down, like this one is so simple and straightforward. It is on your file system. It's on, and so like it just seems like a really straightforward way to do it. And so my argument would be that we should do both, because we don't necessarily know when we're going to put on and have the time to properly do and fully complete. We want to make sure we fully complete these features, not like get halfway there. And so I'd rather have both of them than have one that we're waiting for and we might not get to for a couple months from now. Any thoughts on that?
No, sir.
Yeah, I'm fine with getting whatever works now made available, so long as the default mode in production is to not allow this.
Yeah, I think feature flag backed was a thing that we all agreed on. So I think that that's what it'll be, and then we can merge in basically what Patrick's been working on, and then we'll have that available, and then we can start leveraging that for like local WASH development. Bailey?
Do we have examples of where we mark features as experimental? Because I think, yes, disallowed in production, enabled by flag, but also would be great if it's something that we are considering redoing in a different way later, marking it as experimental so that people are aware that it might not always work that way.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to definitely to mark things as experimental. I don't think there's much precedent for how we've done it in the past, other than to emit log warnings whenever something inside the host is triggered that is making use of the experimental feature.
Yeah, I think the standard here is we have the log, like Kevin said. That's always a good thing to have, just a big warning sign that says, hey, you've enabled this. this is an experimental feature that will likely be removed or supplanted, like, but with a different feature in the future. Also, this is not supposed to be used for production, all the warning stuff. And then I also think we should start having in our documentation. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like I've seen that, I was actually about to go to that too, Bailey. It's like when we document this and the environment variable we choose, I've always seen like, yeah, it's like the X is in different places, but I always like to stick with the like, so it'll be wasmCloud underscore, and then the rest of the names would be like wasmCloud underscore X underscore rest of the name. And then that should be documented. So I think what we want to do, Patrick, to merge this, I think we're going to try to do this with a lot of things moving forward too, is before we merge your actual code PR, we want to see an accompanying docs PR that shows like what all the things are to configure it, all the warnings, caveats, provisos, you know, all those kind of things. And then once we see that up, we can merge both of them and call the feature done. So that's what I'm thinking like is the path forward here, is then we can very clearly document it as like on the starting and actor page, and we'll just have like the warning box that says this is only for use in development and will be likely replaced with a different feature down the road. Just all those kind of things.
Yeah, I also think it'd be great, you know, say on the local nats route, you know, there is a Docker file. When you read the wasmCloud docs, there's like a Docker file pointed out that if you want to do development with Docker, you can run everything separately in containers. And I think that is not served as well by this feature. You know, we need something to make that loop even easier as well.
I mean, for what it's worth, I talked about for like 2 years at this point, the idea of having bindle over nats. Eventually I'll get around to that when I decide to hack on it out of just wanting to, but like that's not like on the roadmap or anything. It's just something that there is a proposal out there and things we've talked about. So there's other ideas that have been floated. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to bring up, and Kevin, I might have you speak to some of this, is, and by the way, I took over for Brooks. Brooks did not just like, I'm not just shoving Brooks aside. You can call me Alt Brooks. And so I just wanted to bring up the upcoming WasCap 092 upgrade. So WasCap is probably something you might not have heard of because it's kind of underneath the covers a lot of times, but it is the signing library. It's how we actually sign, like with the capabilities and everything when you have an actor and a provider. Those things get signed and have this thing that says, hey, I have these capabilities. This is what I'm allowed to use. We're coming out with a new version of this, and it is a breaking version. So 0.9, it will be 0.9.2. We had some patches that we worked through as we tested some of the edge cases. And this will be a complete breaking change for the fact that anything signed with it must be run on a 0.60 host. But I'll let Kevin speak to some of the details around it.
So the short version is that the library that we're using to read and then rewrite the WebAssembly module in order to embed the signature in it is old and unmaintained. And so what happened is at some point, the WebAssembly modules that are being created by quote unquote modern compile targets contain one or more opcodes that this library was never aware of. And you can produce this pretty easily by generating WASI binaries. But yeah, Jordan's got it. Opcode 252, my favorite. So the main idea behind that is that it's just, it's older than the standard that we're generating. So the upgrade to WasCap makes a change so that we can read the new versions of all these WASI files. But as a result of that, the hashes of the bytes that we generate for a given module are not compatible with the hashes that we used to generate for the old ones, because the old one actually had some proprietary code in it that rewrote certain aspects of it. So a round trip of those bytes was lossy. So short version is we have to, in order to keep up with the new targets, we need to use a newer library, and the newer library won't let us make backwards compatible hashes.
Yeah, so old ones will still work in the new. So it's backwards compatible, but not. Let me make sure I said backwards compatible, but not forwards compatible, if that makes sense. So if you basically, after we upgrade these libraries, once you build an actor and sign it, you won't be able to run it on an old. I think I got it reversed. I think that's forward compatible.
You won't be able to run it on an old wasmCloud host. A new wasmCloud host will load old wasmCloud binaries, but it will skip the hash check. It will just give it a pass. So after 0.60, the safest thing to do is, if you're running wasmCloud workloads in production, would be to rebuild them using the newer version of the code generation tools.
Yeah, and Bailey, correct me if I'm wrong. This is also getting us more in line with what the actual, some of the other signing specs that are going on right now. It's not all the way there because those specs are really new, right? But we're trying to move towards kind of having standards here, so that we're following along with it.
Well, we're making the standard. Right now, in the WebAssembly space, there was a WebAssembly signing proposal, but that seems to have really stalled out for over a year now. So I'm kind of feeling like a lot of what we're doing in WasCap, maybe we could talk about, making a general purpose outside of wasmCloud and have it be, be the standard. That would be great for all of us, right? Because we wouldn't have to make too many changes for wasmCloud. But also it would be encouraging the rest of the community to sign all the things, which is really what we need to be doing in software. So more platforms that offer that, the better for us as end users existing in the world.
Yeah. So anyway, just as an FYI, so people know when you update your host, that'll happen. If you have any issues, please reach out on wasmCloud Slack. We tried to test the different edge cases and whatnot. So that is the end of what we had scheduled to talk over agenda-wise. Does anyone else have any other things they wanted to talk about or go over before we get to the end of the call? Jordan followed proper procedure and raised his hand digitally, Liam. So I will defer to Jordan, and then we'll go to you.
No, I just wanted to thank Bailey for pointing me in the right direction. So over the last day or two, I've actually gotten the wasmCloud Go host to implement actor verification via extracting the JOT from the custom, what's it called? Custom sections in the wasm module and validating it. So the Wazero folks had a library exactly where Bailey told me to go. And yeah, so just wanted to share that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan. Liam, did you want to go since you raised your hand, or should Stephen still beat you to the punch on the digital one? So okay, Stephen can go.
Oh, cool. Thanks. It's a few questions. I don't know if it would be better to do it after the call or now. But one was about, I think during Patrick's demo, there was this line about wash control, and then it was using HTTP server with an actor ID, I think. I was wondering if you could do something like that with an RPC call, or I've never gotten to use that stuff before, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah, so there's wash call. That's what it's called. Honestly, and I think we've all admitted this multiple times in public, it's a little gnarly to use because you kind of have to figure out exactly what it's supposed to look like. Ideally, in the future, I'd love to maybe make it a little bit easier to know what the thing should look like, and then be able to, because we know what the interfaces look like and what things should be.
That was kind of along my second question, because I'm trying to imagine creating an API gateway right now, and trying to figure out how to test like a downstream actor from that gateway, and it's really cool with the test harness how you could do that for providers. So I was wondering if it's possible to do something similar to with the test harness for like an actor to actor call, which would be really awesome if it's possible. I just don't know yet.
Yeah, so that is possible with wash call. The testing thing, personally, I've always envisioned like if when we figure out how we want to do like a testing framework for actors, that we do it so it works in any language, so that it tests against the actual compiled WebAssembly module versus like the tests inside of the language. That way we don't have to create language specific libraries or things for every single one. But yeah, there's nothing in the test framework right now that does that, and it's something we've been turning over for a while, figuring out how we want to do it. Because some of the limitations on how you test these things actually in various languages is a little bit weird. But yeah, you can do a wash call of pretty much anything. You just have to know what the thing should look like. So
basically just the interface shape.
Yeah, the interface shape and like the method name that it should be calling.
Okay.
It's a little bit more awkward than that, and definitely highlights the need for us to make this easy. But part of it is because part of the difficulty is that the contents of the message received by the target actor, those are known only to the actor. So the payloads that an actor expects are opaque to wasmCloud and therefore opaque to wash. So the only people who know the shape are people that have used the generated code from the interface. So if you're looking at the interface, you should be able to construct a JSON payload that wash will then convert into a message pack payload. It's a bit janky now, but the developer experience is that particular aspect of serialization was optimized for speed and performance and size on the wire, and not being able to interact with over net. So there's probably a lot of things that we can look into to make that easier.
Do you mind if I sneak one more interface question in, or I can wait till the end?
Stephen, just last one on that. Brooks has had some awesome demos on community meetings a while ago where he would go through and do the wash call stuff for like testing and QA and stuff like that live on the calls. I'll see if I can find a link to that and drop it into wasmCloud Slack.
Okay, it's just about the interfaces. So for actor to actor interface, would you need an interface for each actor to actor call? So if I want to talk to a different type of actor, you need an interface for each one of those calls?
Yeah, so if you're using Smithy, you would go in and define an actor receive true interface, and set that up the way you usually set up all of your other interfaces, and then you can use that to make an actor to actor call. The Pet Clinic example uses that.
Thank you.
One of the other things that you can do, I think it was you that was mentioning like the API gateway pattern. So one thing you can do that's kind of nice is if you have different actors, but those actors all speak the same interface, you can use things like call aliases to target those actors, and then you can call any one of a number of backend actors with the same interface, even if they're not the same exact actor. So you could do things like route an incoming request to a particular actor based on the content of the message.
Oh, that would be so much cleaner. That's sweet. Thank you.
Lastly, we have Liam, which is, I'm glad you remembered because I had that on the list and it drifted up under a comment, so I forgot.
Just a couple of notes. CFP for Cloud Native WASM Day is live in conjunction with KubeCon EU. It'll be taking place on April the 18th in Amsterdam. So please pull together your submissions. We'd love user stories. We love technology, Edge, native, Kubernetes, all the things. There's lots of information. There's a change this year into how registration works. If you register for one cloud native day, you register for them all. You no longer have to register for explicitly cloud native WASM day. When you're checking out for your KubeCon registration, you can just register for that, and you'll actually get access to all of the official Kubernetes days. I would also add that you can catch up with the wasmCloud crew at a couple of upcoming conferences. You can catch us at ShmooCon this weekend if you're in Washington, D.C. You can catch us. You'll be able to catch a couple of us at wasm.io in Barcelona, Spain in March. And we may have some other events coming up here as well. We'll keep those up on Slack. So if you're around any of those cities or locations, it'd be great to touch base and say hello.
Brooks and I will be at KCD Los Angeles and Scale in March. So you can also catch us there if you want to talk things. Basically, we're going to be anywhere coast to coast. The center of the country is a little bit harder because there's not many conferences there. But sorry to all the people in the middle of the US. But yeah, we'll be in the EU, we'll be East Coast US, West Coast US. I always look for excuses to come to Canada, but generally it's BC. So sorry, Toronto. But anyway,
I'll get these on the wasmCloud calendar. If you go to wasmcloud.com, there is a calendar link there. I'll make sure that we have those conferences up to date there, because there's even a couple more. There was just a case study published from Cilium in partnership with Cosmonic about how Cosmonic is orchestrating wasmCloud and has created a version of Cilium that works with Nomad. But that development team was just accepted at HashiConf. We'll be doing a presentation, I want to say in February. And our CTO, Kevin, will be at Cloud Native Security Con in Seattle next week. So we actually have a ton of events coming up here.
Okay. Well, I think that is it for today. We're right at 12. Well, my time, we're all in different times. So thanks everyone for coming. We hope you enjoyed it. This will be available almost immediately right after, because we're streaming it out. So thanks again for everyone and their great conversations and questions. So we hope you have a great week, and we'll see you all next week.